This is TOEFL IBT speaking test, and this test evaluates your ability to communicate in English in an academic setting. It consists of 4 tasks. Task 1, express an opinion on a familiar topic. Listening, campus conversation. Student A: I think the free shuttle service is a fantastic idea. Finding parking on campus is such a nightmare, and with this, I won't have to stress about getting a spot every morning. Plus, I'll save a lot of money on gas and parking fees. Student B: I see what you're saying, but I still have concerns. What if the shuttles get overcrowded? If too many students rely on them and there aren't enough buses, people might end up waiting too long and still be late for class. Student A: That's true, but they're running every 15 minutes during peak hours. I think that should be enough to manage demand. And even if the shuttle is full, students can still take public buses with the discounted passes. It gives us multiple options. Student B: I get that, but I'm also worried about maintenance and reliability. If the shuttles aren't well maintained, they might break down often or not be on time, making it really inconvenient. And what if the Wi-Fi or charging stations don't work? Student A: That's a fair point, but I think the university will make sure the service runs smoothly, especially since they're investing so much in it. And even if it's not perfect, it still helps reduce the pressure on parking spaces, which is one of the biggest issues right now. Student B: Yeah, I guess. If they manage to keep the service consistent, it could actually help a lot of students. But if it becomes unreliable, most people will just go back to driving. Listening, Professor's lecture. In today's discussion, I want to highlight how cultural transmission happens in everyday life and why it's crucial for maintaining traditions. One of the strongest examples of cultural transmission is language. Children primarily learn their native language from their families, shaping their understanding of communication and tradition. But language also carries deeper cultural values. For instance, in many cultures, the way people address elders reflects respect. Some languages have specific honorifics that younger people must use when speaking to elders. This linguistic habit reinforces cultural values of respect and hierarchy. Another great example is food traditions. Recipes and cooking techniques are often passed down from generation to generation. A family might have a special dish they prepare for celebrations, teaching younger members not just how to cook, but also the historical and cultural significance behind the dish. For example, in some cultures, certain foods are only eaten during specific holidays or ceremonies, creating a strong cultural connection through shared meals. Finally, let's consider the role of media in modern cultural transmission. In the past, stories and traditions were mainly shared through oral storytelling, but now, television, movies, and social media play a significant role in spreading cultural values. For example, people across different countries can learn about other traditions through online content, which helps preserve and even revitalize cultural identities. Task 4. Integrated Speaking Task, Academic Lecture, Listening, Professor's Lecture. Today, we're going to discuss the concept of the primacy effect, a psychological phenomenon where people tend to remember the first piece of information they encounter more than later information. This plays a crucial role in how we process and recall information. For example, researchers conducted an experiment where participants were given a list of words to memorize. Results showed that people were more likely to recall the first few words on the list, even if they forgot the middle or later words. This suggests that our brains prioritize early information during learning. The primacy effect also influences first impressions. When meeting someone new, the first details we learn about them shape our perception of their character. If a person initially appears friendly and confident, we are more likely to remember them as such, even if we later observe behaviors that contradict our first impression. This bias can affect hiring decisions, social interactions, and even consumer choices.
I believe that volunteering should be optional rather than mandatory in schools. While community service is valuable, forcing students to participate may reduce their motivation and make it feel like a chore rather than a meaningful experience. True volunteering should come from personal interest and a genuine desire to help others, not as an obligation. Additionally, students already have academic responsibilities, extracurricular activities, and even part-time jobs, so requiring volunteer work could add unnecessary stress and take away from their ability to focus on other important aspects of their education. Furthermore, allowing students to choose whether or not to volunteer ensures that those who participate are truly committed, leading to more meaningful contributions to their communities. For example, when I volunteered at a local animal shelter, I felt motivated and engaged because it was my choice, making the experience more rewarding. In contrast, if I had been forced to do it, I might not have put in the same effort. Therefore, I believe that while volunteering is beneficial, it should remain a personal choice rather than a school requirement. The conversation between the students revolves around the university's new transportation initiative. One student is in favor of the program, arguing that it will make commuting more convenient and reduce traffic congestion around campus. They believe that providing more shuttle buses and bike lanes will encourage students to use eco-friendly transportation options, ultimately benefiting both the students and the environment. On the other hand, the second student is skeptical about the plan's effectiveness. They worry that the shuttle buses might not run on time, leading to delays for students who rely on them. Additionally, they believe that building new bike lanes might take up too much space and could even cause safety concerns for pedestrians. I agree with the first student's perspective. A well-organized transportation initiative can greatly improve student mobility while promoting sustainability. If properly managed, shuttle services can reduce traffic, and bike lanes can offer a safer alternative for cyclists. This initiative could make daily commuting easier and contribute to a greener campus. Cultural transmission refers to the process through which beliefs, customs, values, and traditions are passed down from one generation to another, often through social interactions, education, and observation. This process ensures that cultural knowledge remains intact and continues to shape societies over time. In the lecture, the professor provided several examples to illustrate this concept. First, she explained how language plays a crucial role in cultural transmission. Children learn their native language by listening to their parents, teachers, and community members, ensuring that linguistic traditions are preserved. For example, indigenous communities often teach their languages to younger generations to keep their cultural heritage alive. Another example the professor discussed was storytelling. Many cultures pass down folktales, myths, and historical narratives to teach moral lessons and reinforce cultural values. For instance, ancient legends often contain messages about bravery, kindness, or wisdom, helping young people develop a sense of identity and belonging. Lastly, she mentioned food traditions as a key aspect of cultural transmission. Recipes and cooking methods are handed down through families, keeping culinary heritage alive. For example, in many cultures, special dishes are prepared during holidays and celebrations, reinforcing a shared cultural identity. The primacy effect is a cognitive bias where people tend to remember the first items in a sequence better than those presented later. In the lecture, the professor explained that this happens because the first items receive more attention and are given more time to be encoded into long-term memory. The professor provided the example of a student trying to memorize a list of words. The words at the beginning of the list are more likely to be remembered because the brain has more time to rehearse and process them, while the later words often receive less focus and are forgotten more easily. Additionally, the professor discussed the primacy effect in the context of job interviews. The first impression a candidate makes can significantly influence how the interviewer perceives the rest of the interview. If the candidate performs well at the start, the interviewer is more likely to have a favorable view of them, even if their later answers are less impressive. This can impact decisions, as the initial positive impression might overshadow any later shortcomings. These examples demonstrate how the primacy effect shapes memory and judgments, often causing us to place more weight on initial information, whether we're remembering a list or making decisions about people.